G'day Bodgies and Widgies and welcome back to the channel. Aquarium foods are probably one of my most favourite things to test out, to the point where I buy foods just to go ahead and try them out and not even make a video on them. The way that fish react to different ingredients, brands and scents that fish food have has always been something that's super fascinating for me. So when there was a fish food that was released into the Australian and global aquarium market, made by none other than Nick from Keeping Fish Simple, I knew that it was something that I had to go ahead and try out myself. Before we get into this video though, as always, let's quickly acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land and the people that are managing our land as well, but I say enough talking, and it's time we go ahead and have a look at some Bug Buffet. I did want to provide full disclosure and let you know that Nick did send me Bug Buffet completely for free. However, there's no sponsorship behind this, paid promotion or incentive for me to make this video. Quite a fair few of you did message me directly asking if I had bought this food to test out, and the timing was just perfect when Nick sent it to me. But with that out of the way, let me actually go through this food and what my thoughts are about it. In the past few years, I really have observed a trend of aquarium foods starting to use more insect-based proteins. Originally, you would have seen this with Hikari Bug Bites, then Bioscape Insectivore, and now we've got Bug Buffet. Whilst the first two brands that I mentioned generally tend to use one type of insect, being black soldier fly larvae, with Bug Buffet, you've got three different types of insects, being crickets, mealworms, and black soldier fly larvae. And whilst Bug Buffet does have some fillers, it's much lower when compared to some of the other brands that I've seen in the aquarium market, and the fact that it has three different types of insects not only offers a great range of protein, but also a really good range of calcium. One of the things that stood out to me was actually just some of the additional ingredients that are found in Bug Buffet, and that includes things like shrimp meal, chlorella, kale, peas, and even bee pollen. And whilst these are all things that I might feed separately to my fish, like peas, I feed to the fancy goldfish every now and then just so it can clear out their digestive system, the fact that Bug Buffet has all of those things included is actually kind of cool. And the main thing that impressed me was actually the inclusion of chlorella. Now, chlorella is actually a freshwater algae, and it's used as a sort of alternative to spirulina, and spirulina is quite common in a lot of aquarium foods, especially with algae wafers and African cichlid pellets. The thing with spirulina though is it's actually a high protein marine algae, so for a lot of our freshwater fish that are never going to come in contact with this, their body isn't set out to process this higher level of protein. So whilst we're thinking we're doing something good by getting them a spirulina based food for the algae eaters, it might actually be doing them a little bit of detriment. But with chlorella, it's actually a low protein freshwater algae, which makes it really good for the algae eaters that you might have in your tank. But now let's actually get to feeding some Bug Buffet to the fish. Now, Bug Buffet is actually quite unique in how versatile it is. I was super surprised with just how large the pellets were, but the food itself is incredibly dry and soft, meaning you can crush the pellet up into a fine dust to feed even the smallest of newborn fish. And the really low moisture content of this food makes it different to other soft pellets that I fed, for example with Vitalis. Now, Vitalis pellets have a moisture content of around 23 to 27%, which means when you squish them, they actually do tend to hold their shape and they're a little bit malleable. But the second you squish Bug Buffet, it basically pulverizes. And I find that this does sort of limit the use cases that you can use Bug Buffet in. What I mean by that is, if you're someone like me that does have a collection of larger growing predator fish and you wanted to feed Bug Buffet, the fish will have a really good quick feeding response like mine do. But the problem is, because the food is so dry and the fish start chewing it up in their mouth, they release a ton of really fine sediment that's just floating around in your aquarium water, and it's going to be way too small for any of these fish to go ahead and pick up and clean up. I don't necessarily face that issue too much in my 4-foot aquarium because there's a variety of different mouth sizes. Whilst the goldfish do tend to make a little bit of a mess, the other fish like the torpedo barbs with smaller mouths will generally go ahead and clean up some stuff, but there will still be some sediment floating around the aquarium, and that's just because of how dry the food is. Now, it would be really cool if there was another version of Bug Buffet that came out with potentially a higher level of moisture content, so where the food is still soft, really easy for the fish to digest, but it would remain together and it wouldn't necessarily break up into all of those really tiny dust pieces. But if you've got nano fish that are growing out like celestial pearl danios, guppies, or anything that you've bred, this will be a really great option for you to consider. Another thing I wanted to mention is just the whole sustainability side of Bug Buffet. Farming insects for food and protein is way more sustainable than farming or wild catching aquatic and land-based proteins. Along with that, this is no hard plastic packaging. The sachet makes it really easy to store, and we have a ton of hard plastic packaging as we do in the aquarium hobby. So just having a single zip seal bag makes it really easy to store, feed, and I think it's a really good step in the right direction. Oh, and there are two other feeding options you can use Bug Buffet for. The first one is for shrimp. You can crush this up into that fine nutritional dust that shrimp will just eat up in an instant. Secondly, it'll be great for scavenging fish, so stuff like corydoras, coolie loaches, otocinclus catfish. These are fish that we generally tend to disregard when we feed our overall aquarium, but the fact that you can make this into a food that might just get lodged in some plants, some biofilm, or settle into the bottom of an aquarium where these cleanup crew fish can then get their fill will be really great. Now, if you did want to go ahead and buy Bug Buffet, I'll have the links in the description down below. Once again, this video is not sponsored by Keeping Fish Simple in any way, shape, or form, and the only reason I have it is because of the opportunity that you Bodgies and Widgies have provided to me. So thank you so much for that. Now, if you did end up enjoying this video, I'd highly appreciate if you did want to give it a thumbs up. You can consider subscribing to the channel as well. Thank you so much for getting me to 2,000 subscribers. I have some really cool giveaways and stuff coming out in the future. But once again, thank you so much. As always, stay happy, stay safe, stay Aussie Australian. Bodgie out.